Hello, I'm Libby Brody, certified wine consultant, communicator and columnist. And today I am here in the wine route of Lisboa. We're actually only 30 minutes north of Lisbon, but we're right here by the Atlantic coast. The Atlantic is really important to this region. Firstly, the size of the waves makes it one of those popular surfing destinations in the world, but also that lovely cooling sea breeze coming off the waves and pushing inland to the hilly areas is a vital factor for the wines grown here. Firstly, it gives these wines a beautiful salinity, a sort of salty lick, which is absolutely delicious. But also, it pushes off the humidity and it retains that lovely freshness, that lightness, and that bright acidity. It's a really important part of the wines grown here, and we're going to be exploring that more. But for now, I'm going to do something that everyone should do when they come to Portugal and enjoy a beautiful pastel de nata. I'll see you at the beach.
We're heading already out of town and off to meet our first winemaker.
We're just 20 minutes from Lisbon at Casal da Manteiga, which I believe means butter house, which is great. I love butter, I love booze. This is perfect for me. And I think we're going to be talking about pretty much the jewel of the crown, is the fortified wine, which is amazing. I didn't know you were making these fortified wines, but please tell us about all of your wines.
Yeah, well, this is a DOC for fortified wines. We have vineyards here for more than 2,000 years. We produce fortified wines for more than 500 years. The second half of the 20th century, with this urban development, almost wiped away this vineyard region. And we are trying to recover this region just to bring up this wine again.
Well, this looks amazing and I can't wait to try it. And you also make a still wine.
Yes, we the same grapes, okay? We have Arinto, Galego Dourado and Ratinho are the three main varieties, white varieties for this region. But we produce a still wine mainly to understand what this terroir gave us with these varieties in a full fermentation process.
Please do the honors.
Okay, let's do it. This is an Atlantic wine with a fantastic balance between the freshness of the wine, the acidity, the alcohol, and of course the saltiness, the minerality that this wine has, mainly at the end. So for this one, this is a completely dry wine. You are going to sense this dryness sensation along the tasting, but it's the same profile and the same idea with the fortified wines also. When you are tasting a fortified wine, you are tasting a sweet wine. Okay, but here you are going to sense a dryness at the end. So it's a sweet wine with a dry character. That's something completely odd.
That is completely odd. I can't wait to give it a go. And it's interesting, these are the same grapes and the same terroir?
Terroir, it's quite different from other terroirs in Portugal. If you think about Portugal is a rectangle, okay, with a nose in the middle. And this nose is the Lisbon Peninsula. All of our shore is west shore. We only have south shore in Algarve, and here in this little tiny parcel.
I absolutely get that salinity through it. That's quite immediate. And it's a very bright, very fresh wine. But it's got quite a lot of roundness to that, quite a lot of generosity to that. It's quite broad in the mouth. I mean, lots and lots of that acidity coming through. It's definitely like making me salivate quite a bit in a good non-drooly way, but like a really lovely, mouthfeel to that. Yeah, no one wants that. No one wants that. Maybe crack on with the fortifieds as well. So how do you make this fortified wine?
We use the port technology. So we put the wine alcohol, it stops the fermentation process, it keeps sugar from the grapes, and it raises the alcohol. So we are achieving a semi-sweet wine with more or less 100 grams per liter of sugar. Let's test first this one.
Okay.
This is a 7-year blend.
Now this is an entirely new experience for me to try this style of fortified wine. So
here you are going to find elegance. And elegance, it's the balance between these 4 elements: the acidity, the sugar, the alcohol, and the minerality, the saltiness. At the end, your tongue is dry.
And that's actually really quite soft. It's quite graceful for a fortified wine. There's a lovely lightness of touch to it, and a sort of lovely like caramelly, figgy notes coming through that.
Yeah.
Really, sometimes people think of sort of when you have a sweet wine, you're going to have that cloying sort of unctuousness to it. But actually, this is very fresh. It's quite light. It's got, as you say, that sort of that dryness at the end there, even with the sweet. It's really beautiful combination of flavors. Actually, thank you.
So now we are going to try the superior. It's a 15-year blend. It's the same, only with more time in wood.
And what does that bring to the wine?
Complexity, and if you take a little time, it's a little bit darker. It's a amber, and it's the evolution of these fortified wines. It's a stato d'etilo. In Portuguese, we call it vinegrinho. Vinegrinho, it means little vinegar, and for a still wine, this is bad news. For a fortified wine, it's complexity.
It's got a bit of a tingle on the tongue going on there, and it definitely has these sort of richer, deeper, more sort of honeyed notes, darker honeyed notes going on.
And you can sense some spices, some saffron, cardamom. You can sense some tea leaf.
Given this is such a speciality, I'd be curious to know how the people of Lisbon enjoy this. Do they have this with food? Do they have this at the end of a meal with a cigar? Like there seems to be a real culture of being social in Lisbon, and that sort of gastronomy and food and wine. But how would you pair this, or when would people enjoy this?
Well, all the time.
All the time. Breakfast. Those little pastel de natas would actually go very well. It would actually go very well.
It's true. It's true. I prefer to drink this one, the 15-year-old, after the meal with a cigar. I don't smoke, but for those who like to smoke. This is how I drink this one. It's like a digestive.
Perfect. Round off the end of the night. I can see that going so well. Well, this is absolutely sensational. Thank you so much for letting me come into your beautiful barrel room, by the way. I love a barrel. Who doesn't love a barrel room? Right. And letting me try these. Cheers. Thank you.
Right now, I'm headed to the beach to explore some of these beautiful wines and those coastal influences.
So here I am on the beach, right by the Atlantic Ocean. And this is probably the best beach bucket I've ever had. It's certainly an upgrade. You won't get any sandcastles out of it, but you will get some terrific wines. So let's see what we have in the bucket. Here's my handy glass. And let's see what I'm going to pull out now. Oh, okay. We have first, we have an Orinto. This is a very special grape of the region, indigenous varietal, and quite an adaptable one. So let's give it a swirl, let's give it a sniff, and let's see what we have here. You've definitely got that really gorgeous undercurrent of sea spray and salinity coming through immediately. But because it's had a little bit of oak age, I think it's 2018, it's got this lovely sort of whispers of vanilla and some rounded sort of crunchy green apples going on there. Really delicious, bright, sunshine-filled wine. Absolutely stunning. So what do we have next? Oh, okay, Quinta de Pinto. This is interesting because this is a blend I know very well. It's actually a blend of international grapes. It's Viognier, Marsanne and Roussanne. So I'm expecting there to be some floral notes here and some pretty great structure. Let's give this a sniff as well. Absolutely, it's got this beautiful creaminess to it. It's got a sort of a generosity of flavor as well, but it's still underpinned by that brightness, that lovely fresh acidity that we're getting from those sea breezes. It's got a wonderful balance to it. This is a really fantastic example of a blend I know very well, but haven't tried from this region before, and it's fantastic. What do we have next from the bucket? Let's try. Oh, this is really interesting for me because this is Vital, which is another indigenous varietal from the area, but I've never actually tried it myself. So let's give it a go. Let's see what it's going to be like. Oh, wow. Okay, so this has got a real kiss of the sea to it. This, you absolutely get those waves coming immediately. It's quite a fun beachside, beach vibes wine, but it's done really elegantly, really refined. Absolutely got the salinity, that brightness, that juiciness coming through from that fresh acidity. Oh, this is absolutely stunning. I don't care what the rest of you are doing for us today. I'm going to be sticking here on my beach blanket, enjoying this wine, perfect with the sunshine.
Unfortunately, my plans to lie about the beach all day were scuppered because there's just so much to explore and see in this particular corner of the world. There are incredible hiking trails, walks and views, as well as obviously the surfing we talked about earlier. And of course, very important for all the foodies out there, to go with your fantastic wine, there is the food culture, drawing an awful lot from the influence of the Atlantic and the wonderful seafood that it provides. For now though, I'm actually heading away from the coast and up into those lush green hills to taste some wines with a local winemaker and find just what makes this particular terroir so special.
Well, here we are at Quinta de Sant'Ana, and I'm here with the son of the house, Lucas. Thank you so much for having me here. This place is beautiful. We're surrounded with this lush greenery, sounds of birdsong. But where exactly are we in relation to Lisbon, and how long have your family been here?
Yeah, well, thank you for coming, first of all. We are on an old historical quinta, which is a Portuguese farm estate, let's call it that. We're about 25 minutes from Lisbon Airport and about 20 minutes from Ericeira, which is a world-famous beach destination, of course, for surfing. Well, my grandfather moved here before the revolution in 1968. The intention was to grow wine. That dream was cut short due to the revolution in 74. When my parents got married in the 90s, they came here, so I moved here when I was 4 years old. I still remember the way we used to make wine way back in the olden days, using 19th century technology. I remember especially the white wines had to be pressed on the day that they were picked. And we'd tie a big thick rope around the crushed grapes, and then the men would stay there drinking wine and pressing the press down, which you could only press it down a few millimeters at a time to allow the liquid to flow off before you could ratchet it up again. I think it's been an amazing journey, not just for Quinta de Sant'Ana in terms of our own winemaking, in terms of how the world seems to have discovered Portugal quite suddenly about 10-15 years ago, but also for the region of Lisbon. I think it's such an exciting place to be as a winemaker. There are so many great producers coming out, really harnessing the freshness that the Atlantic brings.
Yes, I'd love to ask you a bit more about that actually, because here we seem to be in sort of a beautiful hilly region, but you actually do get a lot of impact. Is that from the coast and the sea breezes of the Atlantic?
Yeah, so you have to consider that we're more or less the same latitude as Sicily, but we have the freshness from the Atlantic. We have a lot of breezes that come in. Also the cloud cover, we're, you know, got a bit of cloud at the moment. What that does is it allows sunlight to encourage photosynthesis in the plant, but it still keeps the temperatures low, and somehow that is good to maintain acidity in the grapes.
I mean, we have a selection of wines in front of us now. I mean, how would you typify the wines of this region?
Definitely a good acidic profile. They tend to be medium-bodied, I would say, both the whites and the reds, although people are experimenting with different directions of how to bring that out in their style. You'll find a mix of international grape varieties. For example, we have the Riesling over here and a Merlot-based, kind of like a Bordeaux blend over here. And then we have an Arinto, which is very much the white grape from the Lisbon region, although it's planted all over Portugal. And the Chamisco. A Chamisco is a very rare grape that you only find in, well, very few vineyards. It has its own DOC, which is Colares, next to Sintra. It's actually the westernmost point of continental Europe. These are normally grown on the sandy beaches. They're battered by the winds and by the salt from the waves, and it makes quite a remarkable wine. But one that we are still, even though we made this 10 years ago, we're still battling with it. We're still trying to understand how to make wine in a non-sandy environment in our terroir here.
I mean, I've slightly jumped ahead and now tried a few of these wines already, but I don't think I've ever tasted another wine like this. It's very different to anything I've experienced in Europe before. And would you say how much of this is made?
I think there are something like 15 hectares planted,
So really small.
probably worldwide. When we planted ours, we couldn't get hold of plants, so we had to find a local farmer who had vineyards that we could get some cuttings of, and so we grafted them in the vineyard here. But the way this is made is it's picked obviously at an optimal point. The grapes are a bit fussy when they have too much heat, and we vinify it with 30% whole bunches, which gives a bit of green tannins as well, which is lovely. And then I think it ages for about a year and a half on an old oak barrel.
I mean, the wines of Lisboa, they're very popular, as you're saying, all around the world now. I think I heard that sort of 80% of your wines are exported to about 100 different destinations, not just yours, but of the region. But do you think there's as much call for the indigenous varietals like this as there are for the more international varietals? Do people come here for the mix that they get and the variety of the wine styles?
People come to us in particular because of our proximity to Lisbon and because we have on-site accommodation as well. We are a little bit beyond just a wine producer. We have a whole events and catering and tourism side to the business as well, and the wine just marries in beautifully with that. So I think the thing that we keep going back to, the thing that we're celebrating, is the Atlantic, which is such a strong influence on Portugal historically, geopolitically, and also in our winemaking. It's unmistakably what defines Lisbon, both in our wine and I think also increasingly in terms of the image that we have internationally as being a little bit of a surfing destination. I think Lisbon as well has that side of being young and playful and experimental and a bit carefree, which a lot of wines I think are in that style. The Arinto, which is this wine right here, it's a little bit sort of more golden in color, a bit more oxidized. I think about 3 or 4 of the top Lisbon wine producers have in the last year or two released a top level Arinto. I'm talking like the selection of the selection. They all tend to be barrel aged. They all tend to have this interplay of salinity, so you can taste a little bit of the saltiness on in the glass. This lovely acidity, which pairs well, I would say, with the bitter flavors that the oak provides. I mean, I would love it if this style of winemaking would become something that Lisbon is recognized for, in the same way that Burgundy is recognized for a particular way of producing Chardonnay.
Well, it's a stunning place and so close to Lisbon, and your wines are absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for having us here today. It's been really, really wonderful. I'm going to pick this one, I think. In fact, I'm going to pick 2. Should we cheers?
Cheers. I will pick this one as well.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It's clear that Lucas, like many of the winemakers here, is passionate about the wines he's creating and what makes his land and his area so special. They certainly were delicious. So I have a small confession to my wonderful crew.
Okay, full confession time. Those wines were so delicious, and I only got a tasting pour, so I didn't actually even tell you I did this. I may have taken a couple of bottles home. Please forgive me. Your wines are just so good. Who wants some?